going to break down Lava Me. As always, there will be a link in the description that'll take you to my website where you can download the tab. And to make this video a little easier to navigate, the lesson will be time-coded, which will also be available in the description. First, let's start with the tuning. So Mateus is essentially in Dadgad, but he's a whole step down. So I guess you could call that Sisgax. Like some of the other videos I've done to make it easier for you to learn, we're going to tune a little closer to standard tuning, so we'll just stay in Dadgad. Though I will say, when you tune the whole step down, I personally think it sounds a little cooler. So if you go through learning all this piece, definitely tune down to CGC, AGC, play it, and hear how it sounds. Another quick note about the tuning, I'm going to try to call out the strings as they are now in the tuning that we're in. So we no longer have a low and high E, we have a low and high D, and our B string has been replaced by the A string. For those of you that have tried to explain what you're doing by saying what finger is on what fret of what string, it seems like it should be easy, but sometimes even just that in standard tuning is difficult. So moral of the story, don't call me out in the comments. I'll try my best. My goal with this video, like any other video, is to not only show you how to play the piece, but to kind of give you an overview of the harmonic structure. So for those of you that are pretty advanced in your understanding of standard tuning and you want to dive into some alternate tunings, this video I think is going to be a great place to start. With that, let's get into it. So we're kind of playing, I would consider that we're in the key of D major and we're playing a 6, 5, 4, or B minor, A, G. So the first big realization about Dadgad that I came to was kind of born out of this first shape. So I want to just talk about that for a quick second. So I'm grabbing my ring finger on the 9th fret of the low D string and my index finger on the G string. So I'm essentially playing the root of the 6th chord and the 3rd of the 6th chord. And if I consider this open D string to be like a pedal tone, even though that's the same note, I think of this as my minor shape. So my major shape, I would just take this shape and move my index finger up 1 fret, and now I have a major shape. So if you can kind of grasp an understanding of those two shapes and you know the number system and which shapes should be associated with which number, you have the 1, the 7, the 6, the 5, the 4, the 3, the 2, and back to the 1. So already just by grabbing that first shape, if you want to tune down to Dadgad and start writing your own stuff, you can use those shapes and create some pretty cool stuff. So I'll move on. So we start with the 6. After we strike that G string, we're going to hammer our ring finger onto the 9th fret of the G string, and then we're going to strike that string again while simultaneously striking the A string. And we're going to do that little trill, so up to 10, back down to 9, pull off to 7, hammer back up to 9. And then we have like a G major 7 shape. So I'm going to take my middle finger, put it on the 10th fret of the A string, bar my index finger on the 9th fret of the D and G string. I'm going to strike all 3, and then hammer my ring finger up to the 11th fret of the G string. And then I'm going to restrike the D string, and then strike the open B string, or open A string. And then I'm going to restrike the A string, and then I'm going to grab harmonics on the G, A, and D. So that's the 12th fret, and I'm grabbing those with my pinky. And I'll grab most of the harmonics in this song with my pinky, just because I find that when you have chords fretted, the pinky is the easiest to lay down and keep flat across the fret. So one more time, nice and slow. I'm looping back around. I've got 6, and I'm fretting the same shape, but now I'm gonna strike the D, open D again, G, and then the A string. And then I'm gonna strike the open D string. And then I'm gonna take my pinky and grab the harmonics of the 7th fret of the D, G, and A string. And then I'm gonna strike the A string. So that's A. And then on the D string, I'm gonna take my ring finger, slide from the 7th fret to the 9th fret. And then I'm gonna grab my index finger on the G string. I'm gonna take that shape, slide it up 1 fret, back down 1 fret, and then I'm gonna take the same shape and I'm gonna slide it with my ring finger landing on the 7th fret and my index finger landing on the 6th fret. So that shape kind of scrunches together by the time you land on that closing shape of the slide. Then I'm gonna take my index finger, place it on the 4th fret of the low D string. So I'm grabbing all harmonics on the D, G, and A string, and the pattern is D, D, G, A, low D, G, A. Then I'm gonna hop back up to my G major 7 shape. And that's basically exactly, we're taking it right out of section 1. So we've already played that. And then that whole section kind of loops. So to finish this section, we're gonna finish it a little different. Rather than grabbing the 4th fret of the low D string with my index finger, I'm gonna grab it with my thumb. So I'm grabbing thumb on the 4th fret, hit the open D, and then index on the 2nd, hammers up to a ring on the 4th, and then striking the open A string. So the rest of the phrase sounds like this. So we already did this. We're gonna take our middle finger, put it on the 2nd fret of the A string, and hammer up to the 2nd fret of the high A string with our ring finger. And then strike the open A string while sliding down with our ring finger from the 4th fret of the D string to the 2nd fret and then pulling off to open. So this is going to be the start of the 3rd section, but I wanted to add it into the 2nd section because that change is really hard. So if you're practicing the 2nd section, I'd recommend trying to practice it into the 3rd section. So index is grabbing the 10 of the A string, and then my pinky is grabbing the 12, the harmonics on the 12 of the D, G, and higher A string. So let's take a quick look at the harmonic structure and then we'll play it nice and slow. We have 6. I'd consider that to all be 6 as well. 5. 3. 4. 6. 3, 6, 5. So we've essentially gone 6, 5, 3, 4, 6, 5, 3, 6, 5, 4. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's take it nice and slow. So we're starting with the end of the last section. We have this G chord. So index on the 10 of the A, and then pinky's going to grab the harmonics of D, G, and A, the high A. And then we're going to bring our ring finger down to the 11th fret of the high D string, and we're going to hammer up to the 12, pull off to the 11, pull off to the 9, and then slide down to the 7. Then we're going to keep our index finger on the 7 of the high D. We're going to grab our ring finger onto the 9 of A, and then hit an open G, A, and then that fretted note that we already have on the high D string. And then we're going to take that index finger and slide it down to the 2nd fret. And that's going 2, 3, 2, open on the high A. And then we're going to grab like this B minor shape. So I have my index on the 2nd fret of the A string, middle ring and pinky are on the 4 of D, G, and A. And you can bar if you want. I just find that it's a little easier to get that high D string clean when you kind of finger all the notes. And then you're going to strike the A string again and repluck the high D string with the index finger on the 2nd fret, slide up to 7, and pull it off. Then we're back to that G shape with the harmonics. We've already done that. Now, rather than sliding down to the 2nd fret, we're going to slide down to the 4th fret. And we're going to go up to 5, back down to 4, slide down to 2, pull off to open. And then we have the flat 7, which is the C chord. So that's the whole section. Let's talk about the harmonic structure, and then we'll play it nice and slow. We have 4, 3, 6, 5, 4, 3, and we end on a nice flat 7. Take the whole section nice and slow. All right, so we're going to start this section off with the chord that we ended the last section on. We have the flat 7. So I'm striking the A, the G, the high A, and the high D string, and I'm hammering up my index finger to the 2nd fret. My middle finger is on the 3rd fret of the A string. So I'm hammering up that index finger to the 2nd fret of the high D string. And then I'm going to strike the D string again and pull it back off to open. And then I'm going to hammer that index up to the pinky on the 4th fret of the high D string. I'm not going to dive too much into that. It's kind of just like filler. Then I'm going to take that middle finger down to the 2nd fret of the A string and kind of do similar fashion with the ring finger on that. High D string. So that was A, D, G, A, and then I'm going to take my index finger, put it on the 2nd fret of the A string, and hammer up to the 3, pull off to the 2, pull off to open. And then I'm going to strike the low D string and hit just the top 3 strings. So then my left hand is coming up and grabbing the 10th fret of the A string and pulling off to the 9th fret. And then we have this cool little lick. So I have all open. So D, D, G, A. Index grabs the 4th fret of the high D string and hammers up to the 7th fret of that string, pulls back off to 4, and then pulls off to open. Restrike the open A and G string. Index finger grabs the 4 of D. Pinky grabs the 7 of A and slides up to the 9. Restrike the open middle D string, strike the open A string, and we're doing 3, 2, 1 on the low D. I'm back to my flat 7, 6, so we've already played that. And then my thumb's gonna wrap over and grab this flat 2. It kind of sounds a little minor, so flat 2, thumb grabs the 1st fret of the D, and my middle finger is hammering onto the 2nd fret of the G string. Index finger grabs the 1st fret of the A string. Ring finger grabs the 3rd fret of the D string. So index stays on that 1st fret of the A string, pulls off to open, and then we hit the open G string. And then that's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna take our index finger, 1st fret of the A string, so that's 1, 2, open, open, go back to the A string, and then open A string, high A string. And then to close out the section, we have this cool lick, which I would consider to be entirely over the 1. So I'm simultaneously striking both the low and middle D. And after I strike the middle D, I'm going to hammer my index finger onto the 2nd fret, slide up to 4, and then hit the open high A string. And then my index finger is going to hop to the 4 of G, slide up to the 6, hammer my middle finger onto the 7 of G, and then ring finger is going to come down and grab the 7 of the high D. One more time. And then index finger is going to grab the 2 of the high D and do that little trill. We've done it a couple times, but 2, 4, 2, open A. After the open A, we're going to do 2, 4 on the A string, open D, and then open A. So that whole lick. Not going to spend a whole lot of time on the harmonic structure. By now you should have kind of a pretty solid understanding of the chords that we've been playing. A lot of it's repetition, so let's take it nice and slow. So the last section, we've kind of already played it. So we have this 4, we have our 6, 5, and we're gonna do that first ending of like the second section. And then to close it out, we have, so I'm grabbing pinky on the harmonics of the D through high D string, so middle D through high D, and my index finger is going to grab the 9th fret of the low D. And so for the first chord, I guess you can call this a chord, we're going to do just the G, A, and D string. Then we're going to move our index finger down 1 fret on the low D string and play the D, G, and A string. And then we have, so index is going 5, 4, 2. And when you land on that 2, pinky's going to grab the harmonics of the G, A, D string. So I'll take that whole section nice and slow. If you want to schedule a one-on-one to talk about this piece, DADGAD, the number system, the pentatonic scale, anything guitar-related theory, definitely fill out the form on my website. And if you found this video to be helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for sticking around.